Hey there, this is going to be a draw with me sketching session. Grab out your pencils and paper if you want to sketch along. I think today I'm going to be drawing some fantasy characters yet again. But before I do that, I want to share with you some of the art that I found lying around the internet this morning. This is the Drawing Codex, and on this channel, we're all about drawing cool stuff from our imagination, embracing the challenge of drawing, and mastering the craft of line and color illustration. Let's check out what I found today, which is the 24th of August, 2022. All right, the first thing that jumped out at me was some awesome John Fry vehicle industrial design. I really like the sort of mix of, again, super solid drawing here, but also mixed in with some, more traditional style sort of painting, right? Doesn't look like this one was created with a 3D base, and it's really cool to see the process here. So again, I always recommend sort of checking this stuff out. If you want to learn more about sort of how to do this, the sort of Scott Robertson tutorials, his YouTube channel, and again, a lot of the other sort of industrial design focused, tutorials will really sort of help out. But again, whenever I see this, it just reminds me how much I need to work on my general perspective and rendering. But yeah, always a fan of John Fry and his sort of awesome vehicle designs. Next up was this thing by Claude Z, which is, again, super weird and inspiring. If you check out the rest of their work, there's a whole bunch of really sort of out there crazy fantasy stuff, or at least out there for me. And again, always super inspiring to see people, I feel like sort of pushing the boundaries in terms of, making stuff that really does feel like it is otherworldly. Super cool style. Again, I like that it's sort of, low in that sort of tonal range, but still has a lot of sort of drama. And again, sort of really cool composition and just that feeling of weirdness. You can see there's, again, some cool process stuff there, which is really awesome to see the general sort of process that was used. And again, with a lot of their work, if you sort of go check it out, there's sort of extra stuff there that sort of talks about, I don't know, some of the story behind it. But yeah, it makes it really sort of fun to look at and sort of check out, some of that process. And again, like the thoughts that go into it. The next thing I saw in my feed was these sort of sketches by Maydao. And yeah, I feel like, again, just really cool sort of line and color, simple style, but heaps of energy and character to all of these little sketches. Always, again, reminds me how much I need to sort of push and exaggerate things, and just how much you can push and exaggerate stuff if you have a really good sort of, sense of that sort of foundational, again, sort of anatomy and form and stuff. You can push it quite a long way, but just really cool shape design. Again, always reminds me how much I have to push my shape design. I typically don't do a great job of that. And again, it's always this type of stuff that reminds me how cool that looks when you do it really well. So again, go check these out if you get a chance. The next thing I saw was a few more of these sort of dragon themed community challenge pieces from sort of ArtStation. And these are really cool, again, mostly because I like dragons, but also because I feel like, again, people do a really good job of these. And I often sort of look at some of these things and again, I wish it was actually a video game or something that we could play, but really cool keyframe illustration here, great compositions, great colors, really awesome 1, 2, 3 read. And again, a great mix of that sort of, it's sort of painted, but it has a really sort of crunchy graphic look. Really nicely done. And again, awesome to see a lot of the process here. A lot of the, again, design work that goes on behind it. Awesome work by Zhao Fei Yi. So yeah, that was super cool to see. And next up was another one of these dragon challenges. This time by Matthias Osland. And again, super cool sort of, take on these sort of concepts, right? All these kind of like bird people. And again, sort of some very sort of like different looking dragons, Really, really cool. How often I genuinely find with a lot of these challenges that, often the stuff that people do and the amount of effort they put into it is really, really crazy. And again, it often feels like it is way more imaginative than a lot of the games and the products that we actually get through the entertainment industry, right? Which, again, I think is just a testament to how creative you can get and how sort of interesting you can make a lot of these designs if you kind of just let artists go and create sort of really, really cool stuff. But yeah, I thought these were sort of awesome. And again, exactly the kind of stuff that I like to draw, sort of awesome fantasy stuff, tons of dragons. And again, it's hard to come up with interesting new dragon designs. So I think everyone's done a really cool job of that. Anyway, those are the main things that I sort of found and really sort of, piqued my interest. There was a whole bunch of other really cool stuff today as well that I saw. But anyway, let's jump over to the drawing table and we'll do some sketching. And here we are at the drawing table. Now, this is my sketch from last time. I think, again, I'm just going to do some sort of fairly simple warm-up style sketches. I'm sketching on Strathmore drawing paper here. So this is a Strathmore 400 series, which again is, like a quite a high quality paper. And it's the smooth surface, and I found that this does a pretty good job of being an actual drawing paper, right? It's still a paper, but you can beat this up. Got some black wings, kneadable putty eraser. That's normally all I'm using for sort of sketching here at the drawing table. Now, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about how I create the work that I do using the line and color style, you can check out my free Quick Start Guide. It's aimed to get you up and running quickly in Photoshop, and it talks about how to develop your own line and color process and style. I go over all of the brushes and PSDs and actions, etc. that I use day to day, and I talk about how to go from creating work from a thumbnail to a finished product. Go check it out. The link will be in the description. All right, so I've got my sort of basic rough in here, and all I'm doing is, again, just following my typical Loomis method process, finding that ground point that represents the bottom of the center of balance, and I'm going to think about how we can sort of pose this character. Might see if I can move those legs out a little bit. Again, just make that feel a little bit more planted. Put in a few of those rough things, and again, we'll just rough in some basic proportions. Knee here, knee there. Roughing it in. So I have a bit of an idea of which character I'm going to draw here. So this is the general sort of character that I'm drawing. Again, I don't think I've even posted this image anywhere. It's part of a tutorial sort of series that I'm going to add to one of the courses some point soon. But yeah, so this is the sort of character I'll mostly be sort of focusing on. Again, he is the character who rides this kind of weird silvery lizard in, again, some idea for a book that one day I will draw and make into something. But yeah, for now I'll just sort of remember and keep that somewhere where I can sort of easily sort of remember and see it. But yeah, it's basically just a pretty sort of simple character. Got some sort of shoulder pads. So first thing I'm going to do is block it in, right? Get most of the basics there. and try and sort of get a feel for all of those separate elements. So, you know, even the hair, right? Even though I've got a little spider friend going around the place. Yeah, even though it's like it's not like a real, you know, I'm not really sort of figuring out where the hair goes. I'm just sort of blocking in the shapes initially. Again, super important to do this. And then we got, again, bottom of the rib cage is where my elbow is going to be. Other elbow, so I got upper arm, and that's sort of where the pelvis is. Hand is going to be there. All right, let's track that across, and other hand. Now, again, that is the left hand, so really this is what, all right, the sword should be in his right hand. So let's try that. And what we'll do is put that means there'll be like a scabbard kind of here. Alright, that'll go there, attached to a belt somewhere. So there's basically like quite a large belt there, and then there is kind of like a little sort of skirt thing. Alright, and that goes up here, and there's kind of this, let's rough in that anatomy. Right, find that mass there. Again, think about where those pectoral muscles would be, deltoid. Right, again, we can get all this sketchy stuff away later on. So this is not a super sort of muscly heroic character, right? More of like sort of a very sort of average build. And we've got, again, some sort of armor on here. Same thing here, got that. Oh. Shoulder pad. Got a cape. And again, let's think about good way to just, again, what we want to, you know, start to do is visualize again. I sort of drew over here, right? That's kind of where the horizon line is. So it means we're kind of looking up at the face a little bit, down at the feet. So yeah, if you're drawing capes and stuff, try visualize again this place that the character is kind of sitting on. Right? Try visualize, you know, if they kind of had a, right, like if there was a longer skirt on here, what would that look like? And then try feel that same sense of circularity. Right, and then again, so I'm drawing through. So I think that cloth is going to drape over. Which again, we don't have to draw super realistically, but a little bit is probably good. And so yeah, just think about where those bits are going to be on the ground. You can add some weathering to that. Oh. And yeah, see how we go. So that's mostly the rough in. Can be good, you know, if you do have a ruler lying around to just kind of put in, right, like one of those lines really solidly. And again, do some simple form drawing. right? Just putting some of those lines in. Again, I haven't followed them that well, but even just a little bit, right? Just thinking about that structure will help a lot. And yeah, let's get a ruler there. Boom. Let's get the other one. Right. Again, we can figure out, what kind of sword it would be later. Got. Just going over there. Maybe again, some sort of typical, this is very generic for what I sort of tend to do. Think about some silhouette pops. Again, just building on overlapping shapes. Find that center, and again, character did have a kind of breastplate thing that looked a little bit sort of low rent, but I think that was sort of part of the charm there. Boom, boom. Alright. Got the neck. Got some sort of traps. Head is going to be there. Let's draw down. No, let's have it a little bit more front on. So, got that. Cheekbones. And in a minute, I'll double, triple check these proportions. Just make sure they're sort of going in the right direction. Faces, when I construct them always like this, I always feel like, yeah, it looks kind of ridiculous. Because yeah, we sort of miss all the character and all the fun stuff about characters when we kind of construct them using these hyper sort of technical methods. But I do find in the end it kind of gives me what I need, right, in terms of sort of building the rest of it and making sure I don't get sort of too lost. So we're gonna have some hair that's kind of coming out a bit more like this. Again, utilizing some heavy shape design, not reaching the real sort of top of that page. And yeah, so that's the basic idea. Got it all sort of blocked in, so the next step is to sort of maybe do a little bit of erasing, make sure again we don't have any real sort of silly lines that don't need to be there, and then probably do another sort of construction pass, right? So I also like to, again, using this sort of drawing setup, just sort of get off the chair like I'm doing now. You can't really see, it doesn't make that much difference, but my head is much more likely to sort of pop in, and which again I do apologize for, but this is one of the only ways I can really find to make sure that I don't let the perspective that I'm viewing things from really negatively affect what's going on. Let's see if we can use a longer pencil so I can show you what's going on there. Alright, boom. Here, maybe a bit more like that. Hairline there, pull that hair up a little bit. Got some hair there, hair there. So I'm going to leave most of the facial features for the final pass. I kind of know where they need to be. just a matter of putting them in, and I'll do that in a sec when I get rid of some of this sketchiness. Again, still a sketch, still a warm-up sketch, but we want to, again, make sure I'm always, using a little bit of that, right? A little bit of that process. Again, the idea of like an iterative process, just to make sure that it's mainly because, again, I feel like it allows me to flow a little bit better in the drawing if I know that, what I'm doing is not the final. Which is, not always the way that I like to draw. Sometimes it can be really good to, just do that sort of one and done thing where, every sort of line you do is the final, and it's a real sort of puzzle to make it work. But yeah, again, normally I prefer the idea of letting it flow a little bit more and being able to do some iterations. So we've got some sort of belt here. And so this is where, again, what I'll tend to do now is think about all those overlaps, right? So I've got, I've got the general perspective of where that belt is going to be. What I can do now is think about precisely like sort of what overlaps what. Make sure we get all those kind of silhouette pops there. And that really is, again, if you're in a rush, if you're trying to sort of speed things, which I normally am, this is the benefit of this, general sort of idea or way of doing things, right? Where we sort of rough in the general sort of perspective there. And then once we've got all of that sorted, then I can go in and kind of make it more interesting. And often you don't need that many passes to really make it interesting, to add all those extra little bits where, we've got silhouette pops. One thing going, and what I mean by that is just understanding I've got the belt going over this, right? We can make sure those silhouettes are, right, are kind of working. Not sure how. Not sure how that's meant to work really, but anyway. Putting some sort of weird markings and things on it. Make it feel less like just a pile of stuff. Again, here got some armor. Got this thing. And the weird, again, this is like often one of those bastardizations of traditional sort of armor, right? Where it's like, oh, it doesn't really look like that, but kind of creates some cool shapes, and sometimes it kind of looks like that. All right. So yeah, need to clean up that face. But some of this might be right. Some of this might not need too much cleaning up. Again, it is just sketching sessions. And that's where, you never know like what is going to cover up what. Again, once we start to add slightly, darker lines to things, clean it up a bit, then frequently those kind of fainter lines that were a real eyesore before sort of fade away a little bit. And, as long as we're going to call it a sketch, then it doesn't really matter that much. Can think about, again, putting some sort of shading stuff on here. All right, so let's get it to that same level everywhere. So here, again, how much do we need to draw these hands? Need to draw them a little bit. We can maybe get away with not making them super sort of defined. See if we can add something to this sword. And the reason we can get away with that is just that the hand is just that it's not very prominent. Bit of a wavy line. Oh, messed that up. Let's get rid of those lines as well. Again, we could get out the ruler. Could do chicken scratch, or we could try it just using again, it's not very good. Got sort of smudges. Let's get, again, an anti-smudge thing, because I think that's one of the problems there. So yeah, like as I'm trying to not smudge here, I'm sort of like thinking about what's happening here as I'm sort of drawing the actual sword. Whereas if I can flow across the paper and use that paper, then yeah, it sort of becomes less of an issue. Easier to control that way. All right, and here we've got a couple of things that can potentially turn into really bad tangents. So let's see if we can sort of sort that out. Oh, so we're going to have some sort of shading in here and some shading in here. Same thing here. See if we can break those up, put some shading there. Cape goes over there. Alright. Okay. See if we can clean a few of these things up. Again, we don't need this in here. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Let's redo that face. But again, I've got that all there now, so we don't need our indication of the horizon line. Yeah, cool. Let's get this. But again, that feels a little bit sharp to me. Right, so we could maybe blunt it on some, right? some sort of other part of the drawing. And I actually think that character had like a pretty sort of pointy style nose. All right, so again, just indicating like where those eyes are meant to start. Put the eye sort of pupil thingy there, and put in some eyebrows. Again, keeping it all pretty abstract. And again, here I feel like I'm sort of totally running out of paper. Always good to leave a little bit extra. But still, you know, if I needed to scan this, I reckon I could still get, you know, a pretty decent sort of end result. Bump, bump. Again, utilizing those abstract shapes. And again, maybe some sort of extra clothing there. Got the ear. Not going to see much of that. Again, pretty sort of, again, stylized face in terms of proportions. Right, sort of smaller upper sort of forehead. But again, we are kind of looking up at the character. So even though, again, I sort of, you know, run out of room a little bit, it kind of works okay with the sort of style and look of the character, which again has a fair few sort of you know, very sort of stylized manga style features. All right, now let's clean up around that face, because it's a sort of focal area, and if we sort of add a little bit of detail, again, sort of up here, it'll sort of draw us over there, which is kind of where we want. So just sort of punch that, let's punch that. Again, adding little bits of accentuation here and there, boom, boom. Roughing up some of those edges to make it feel as if, again, that cape has some sort of, you know, texture to it. All right, and basically I'm like, yep, I kind of like how that's going. Let's just finish off the rest in short order, because none of this other stuff is really in the primary read. You know, we sort of want the primary read to be in the face, so yeah, we don't have to worry too much about this. Bump, bump. Right, we got some knee pads here. You know, fantasy knee pads that don't make a lot of historical sense, but sort of look cool. Let's think about adding a bit of texture to some of these things. Again, see, like pushing the shadows there. Put in these pants. Again, got knee pad going there. Bump. Bump. Got that scabbard around the back. Bump. 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 Little thing hanging off there. Let's put a few little indications. Here again, same thing. Boot. Calf. Okay, let's put in a bit of indication of what's happening there with that boot. Some sense of design. Again, let's kick that out the same. So again, always just trying to sort of carry across, right? Trying to construct, put in those marks, step back, see whether that works, step back. Just be careful. Very easy to kind of like cover up this hand, this foot, kind of start working here and then like bam, you're in trouble. So, part of the stuff I'm always trying to do, if I am going fast, I'm like, I got to finish this, is like, go smooth, right? That is often really good advice, right? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. It's so true. If we don't make mistakes, and then again, we just kind of put in the basics, then often it will all fall into place. If you rush a little bit too much, then it might not. So let's get rid of this guy. Don't need that. Draw through. Let's get rid of some of these marks, but I might put a little kind of feeling of shadow under there. So when I'm sort of coloring in / filling in these blacks here, right, I'm being pretty deliberate with this kind of cross-hatchy sort of ambling way that I'm putting these in. I'm being a little bit random with it, and what I find is that that randomness helps me to give a sense of purpose to what's going on. So it's sort of random in that there's no sort of logic to why one sort of little bit of hatch goes the other way and then another bit of hatch goes the other way. It's kind of like a little patchwork, but the fact that it is random, and I'm not trying to match it up means that I can sort of do it a lot quicker. If I sort of, go over everything and sort of blend it in, that's kind of okay. And it also means, again, if I try and darken up a little area, that will kind of blend in. So again, it's often these little bits and pieces that it feels sort of random, but I'm doing it that way for a reason. And again, we can also, add a little bit of tonality or something to some of these bits and pieces, sort of tone them down. If we, if you don't want the reed to be there, right, then we can just kind of, again, add some random hatching, random feeling of texture or whatever. And again, let's sort of think about where the character is standing, right? Again, maybe on some sort of semi-grassy patch. Boom. So again, these are just abstract marks, right? It's the iconic representation of what grass might be, right? That kind of is going to help sell the idea. But also, it just covers up some of those sketchy marks that were there, which is is also really useful, can be handy. Tricks of the trade. Anyway, that's it. We've sort of again gone over the time that I'd normally sort of spend on one of these, but again, doing full figures takes a little bit longer than just faces. That's all for this one. Let me know below if you got any sort of general drawing or sort of other comments and stuff, and I'll try and answer them in the next one. But for now, happy drawing.